So what is up, everybody? It is today, Wednesday, the 29th of April. We are in the 28th day of my COVID campaign for financial awareness. Just 3 days left, today, tomorrow, and Friday, and then we are in May. So as you can tell, we are in 7 straight weeks now of lockdown mode. You can tell by the length of my hair. I got a haircut in March 11th with my boys at Elevated Barber. So I can't wait to go back. Can't wait to get my haircut again. But as you can see, I'm toughing it out and I'm going to deal with it. So today I'm going to talk about a very touchy subject, something that many people disagree on, and I like to think that I have a bit of inside knowledge about renting versus owning. Renting an apartment or renting a home versus owning a home. The answer, which one is better, is not very simple. Truth of the matter is, it's different for everyone. There's positives and negatives to both sides of it, so I want to go through all those aspects today and also give some varied opinions about why and how you can get on top by doing either or. It's not necessarily if you do one, you'll be successful. If you do the other, you won't be successful. It is a situation where we all can come out on top, whether we rent or we own. I personally am a renter, so I want to let that out of the bag right now. I rent, but I come from a history of home ownership and owning rental units of my family. So my dad both owned and rented properties, so I understand how the ins and outs of it work. I also handle mortgages, and I do budgets, so I understand how that works for people as well. And I also understand my own personal financial situation, so I understand how renting isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily for everyone, and I want to explain the positives of both. So for most people, the answer isn't that simple. You got to dig deeper and truly understand yourself to know which one's best for you, or which one is best for you right now is actually the most important thing. Not necessarily forever, but maybe just right now. First things first, though, let's jump into the market, and boom, boom, boom. We are seeing 2% gains across the board in North America. TSX on a run, 6 weeks straight of growth, which is great. But mind you, we came down from a 38% decline, which is not great. So we are almost halfway home in terms of our losses from the original huge dip with the COVID crisis. Once it got announced, we saw 38% decline. We are pretty much halfway back. We need to get to about the large $17,000 mark, almost $18,000 mark with the TSX to get back to home. But as you can see, we're making positive strides. The Dow Jones 2% gain as well, 500 points up as of right now. Doesn't mean it'll stay that way today, but we're looking at 24,600 with the top 30 companies in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So the Dow Jones itself is doing quite well today, 2% gain. S&P 500, the broader market, what we like to base our predictions on is the S&P 500. It is up 2% as well. And the NASDAQ, the good old NASDAQ, our tech sector, is up about 3 points, which is pretty amazing for the day. So hopefully this trend continues. This is all based on the optimism that we are having right now in terms of opening up the economy. We're starting to see a level off of cases, a level off of new cases of the coronavirus. So this is bringing optimism to the market, and what this is doing is allowing politicians and the powers that be to actually come up with plans to reopen the economy. And if you remember earlier in the week, we saw Doug Ford release a 3-step phased plan. He didn't give a timeline on that, but my guess is that by mid-April, we will start to see the easing of restrictions in terms of how we are going to enter back into society. My opinion, it's not going to be the same maybe ever again. But that doesn't mean that we can't live our lives and produce and get back to our jobs and get back to work. The economic fallout of this will continue afterwards, as you're seeing Boeing today is laying off 10,000 jobs. So it's a scary situation in terms of the broader economy or the longer term economy. But we will get through this. What we need to understand right now is that this is why we do not shift our investments when we are down, because then we are not taking advantage of these gains that we are currently right now. That's a huge thing. So this is why when we hit the lows of the lows that we hit in March, I was telling people, please do not shift into cash right now, because you will just lose out on any gain that may happen. And we have since seen a 20% increase in the broader North American markets, and of course the European markets as well, and Asian markets. 20% increase since the lows of the lows. So we need to make sure that we're not shifting, because right now is the time where we need to get these gains. Doesn't mean it'll stay this way. It could go down again, but it may not plateau back right down to where it was, that 38% decrease, or 30 to 38% decrease in North America. So again, markets are up today, positivity, signs of reopening the economy. So let's make sure that we are understanding our investments and actually taking the time to look at what we're investing in and see if it's right for us. And you can do that with the help of a financial advisor like myself. Again, we're applying for the CERB. May is just 2 days away, so I want people to get those benefits into their bank accounts as soon as possible. All you have to do is jump in and apply, and make sure you answered that your situation has not changed. So if you're still laid off work, if you're back to work, do not apply. And make sure that you're actually putting some money away for taxes if you can, because you will get nipped in the bud next year come tax time when you need to actually file. So make sure you're ready for that. Put some money away. Get going with that. Also, we're downloading the Combo Expenses Worksheet. This is my worksheet where I help people organize their finances. It's a powerful worksheet, very simple, very easy to use, very transparent, and it helps you get organized. And right now is a great time to do that, as I've been saying for the past 6 weeks. So let's jump into my post from exactly 1 year ago today. 1 year ago, April 29, 2019, I released this post on renting versus owning. And this post actually comes to me from people who are not inside the industry. And the reason why I wrote this is because so many people told me that renting was a waste of money. I want people to understand that if you are a renter, you are not wasting your money. If you are a renter, you are actually just paying to live. There's nothing wrong with just paying to live. People make it seem like it's this or the other. You either own a home or you live in a dumpster. That's the only two options for you. Renting is actually paying someone to actually take care of your living conditions for you, as opposed to you doing it for yourself. Renting is not a bad thing, because ultimately you need to live somewhere. If you rent, that means you are actually paying for someone to handle the housing expenses for you. It's just like food. No one gets pissed off at someone when they buy food and all they do is eat it once and then walk away. You need food to survive. You need shelter to survive. Renting is not a waste of money. Now, where it can be a waste of money is actually if you're renting outside your budget. That's a completely different story. But renting in general is not a waste of money. Just like owning a home is not the be-all to end-all. Most of the people I know that have deep, deep, deep financial troubles are people that own homes. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are super successful because you own a home. Do not hang your hat on owning a home as your true rate of success. And do not frown on renting as your true rate of non-success or being unsuccessful. It's not necessarily that way. And I'm going to explain this right now. Again, this is not a pro or a negative for either or. Everyone needs to weigh their own situation. It's different for everyone. And renting versus owning is a hot subject, because people will always say, well, I'd rather own than rent because then I'm paying someone else's rent. Well, ultimately, or someone else's mortgage. Ultimately, those aren't the only two factors involved with this. So let's take a quick look. I'm going to go into some myths in terms of renting versus owning. Myth is throwing away money. That is a myth. By that logic, food will be a waste of money. You can find food for free growing on the side of the road. You can pick berries off a bush. You can go pick apples off a tree. You can go dumpster dive. Food could be free if you really wanted it to be. That doesn't necessarily mean if you buy food, it's a waste of money. Renting is not a waste of money. You're not throwing your money away. You're paying for something and then receiving something in return. So in that sense, why would you pay for anything? Why wouldn't you just jump on the back of a bus and hitch a ride that way with your skateboard? Why would you pay for anything in that sense? Things cost money. Renting costs money. You need somewhere to live. Ergo, renting is not throwing away money. How you go about it depends on many factors, though. You could be wasting money on your rent because you could be renting out of your range, and that has nothing to do with renting in general. It just means that you haven't hammered down your budget. There are people who would also argue that owning a home is throwing away money. You're paying things for like property taxes, insurance, house insurance. When has someone ever made a home insurance claim in this part of the world? home insurance claims are so low, so minuscule. The odds of your house are burning down are less than the odds of your car burning down, or the odds of you losing your wallet, or the odds of you actually breaking your leg, stepping off the curb. No one ever claims on home insurance. It's one of the least utilized insurances ever. But the big thing that people need to understand about it is required to actually own a home is to have home insurance. And the reason being is because the lender wants to know that they're protected in case of catastrophic events such as a fire, flood, something like that. There's not only two choices out there. Renting and owning aren't the only two choices out there. It's not as if one's good and one's bad. So this is what I'm going to go through various myths with this actual sticky subject to make sure that people understand that. Housing costs money. Renting is one way of going about it. Therefore, not owning or not, it's not throwing away money if you rent. So I attach a post here from my man Matt Santagapata from London, Ontario. Santa knows best real estate. Advice for first-time home buyers. So this is a definitive guide from Matt talking about advice for first-time home buyers and what they should do to actually understand what it takes to actually be a first-time home buyer. Owning a home is cheaper than renting. That is a myth. Owning a home is not cheaper than renting. It is not at all. Not only is it not cheaper, but it also can be much more expensive. And I will get into that right now. Before you send me a DM of your mortgage costs, tax and insurance bills, and your all-in price for owning, read what I have to say. Yes, your mortgage is probably cheaper than rent for a similar place. For instance, I paid $1,200 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath place in downtown London. For $1,200, I could probably get a mortgage for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home that I own on my own and get that mortgage and do that on a monthly basis. You may think it's cheaper because of that, but that's not the only cost involved. So yes, your mortgage is probably cheaper than someone's similar rent for a similar place. But we all know about taxes, utilities, insurance, and maintenance. Do we know that how much these things add up? And that's huge. Let's look at maintenance. First of all, if you're not spending money on maintaining your home, you're wasting your money. Your home is an asset that you need to put money into on a regular basis. The piggy bank is you paying off your mortgage on a regular basis. Maintaining it is growing your asset over time. Your home appreciates in value because the desirability of the neighborhood you're in, the economy raises itself due to inflation as well. But at the same time, you need to maintain your home. If it's a pile of junk because you haven't done anything in 40 years, you are losing value on your home because of that. So make sure you have to maintain your home. But then itself, if you're not putting at least $100 to $200 a month on average, so roughly $1,200 to $2,500 a year in maintenance into your home, you are not helping your own cause in terms of your home as an asset, the resale value of your home. So one easy way to measure this factor is I rent, but I don't own a rake. I don't own a lawnmower. I don't own a shovel. I own very little tools. I don't need them. I don't own a hose. I don't own a garden hoe. I have one broom, an indoor broom. I own a vacuum. I don't own a leaf blower. And I don't have to buy bags to take care of my lawn in the fall. I don't need to buy soil in the spring. So let's just cut the myth that actually owning a home is just an all-in cost and nothing else comes of it. Owning a home is not an all-in cost, and especially if you own a condo, definitely not an all-in cost. So that is my just simple way of going about it. Also, I have a washer and dryer in my apartment. If they break, someone comes and brings them. Now, washer and dryer itself, if I had to get a new one, we're looking at least a couple grand unless I get one off the block or from the want ads. But honestly, I will never, ever, ever have to buy any of these things. Something breaks, I get it fixed. Now, again, that's not my reason for renting. Ultimately, those costs are associated with owning a home. I don't have those costs. So I'm just trying to give an example of things that I don't have to pay on a regular basis. They're not free. While renter may never have equity, they also don't have to drop $25,000 on a roof probably twice in the lifetime of the home, or at least once in the lifetime of the home. Owning a home is not cheaper. That doesn't mean that renting is better. I'm just saying owning a home is not cheaper. That's a fact. Period, point blank, that's a fact. I have this post attached to it, hidden closing costs. It's not just the mortgage that you will pay. This is a post that I released, so check that post out. It is in the blog as well. Housing is an amazing investment. No, it's not. It is not an investment at all, and let alone an amazing investment. Let's start with your principal resident. I'm not going to talk about rental income because that's a completely different ballgame. If you own homes for rental income, those are investments. I'm talking about your principal residence. We need to get out of the mind frame that owning a home is a resident or is an investment. Your principal residence, not investment. And let me explain. So while you're putting money towards your home every month with interest, I might add, so you are actually putting money into your home and paying interest on that money. Your mortgage is not free. There is a lot of interest associated with it. You only recoup this investment with you when you sell. So you must sell your home to get your money back. That's pretty simple. So when you sell your home, you get your money back from your investment. Good. But at the same time, though, there is interest on that money. So I don't know about any investment you have that is charging me 3 to 4 to 5% interest. I am not paying that on any of my investments. So make sure you understand that owning a home costs money, and that is in the form of interest on your mortgage. Also, you live in that beautiful dumpster I mentioned with $500,000 in your pocket. You sell your home, you go live in a dumpster, now you have recouped $500,000. You have to live somewhere. So you're going to use that $500 to either buy another home or rent when you downsize later in life. So you're not actually recouping the value of that investment. That value is actually used to transition into a new home or some other form of housing. It could be long-term care later in life. So how did you gain money on that investment? Yes, your house grew in value over time, but at the same time, you added cost to it in the form of insurance, property tax, maintenance, and interest costs on your mortgage. And then later in life, you recoup that, but then you have to live somewhere else. So where is the gain, in my opinion? It doesn't exist. You are actually just forced saving money over time, and this is your transition piece to other forms of housing or later in life, leaving it to your kids when you die, and that is an inheritance piece. A very nice inheritance piece, I might add. So again, get the idea out of your head. It's either rent, own. That's not the case. Owning, you're not going to own or live in a dumpster. You need to live somewhere, so understand that. So again, my tax-free savings account doesn't require money to the city every year to maintain. I don't need to pay my property tax. They also will attack your home if you don't pay your property tax. So I don't have any investment that I can't withdraw from at any given time. That to me is another factor of it. You need to sell your home to recoup the costs, and you might not be able to sell your home at the desired price, first of all, or at all if it stays on the market. Now, obviously, the market is hot now. It doesn't mean that'll always be the case. Back in the day, we go back 10 years, maybe 12 years, houses stayed on the market for 6 months or longer. Now they're staying on for 6 days tops, but ultimately that will change. And in fact, it might change right now because of the way the economy is trending. So let's understand that. If you add the interest of the mortgage and all the other costs, you'll be lucky to break even over the lifetime of your home. And I'll give the example of my dad who owned a property in Brampton, Ontario. He bought that property for $200,000 back in 1992. He sold it about 3 years ago for $550,000. So you might think, what a cool profit of $350,000 off the original purchase price. If you take that cost, $350,000, over the course of 25 years, you are looking at about $17,000 extra per year that he had to put all that effort in to get that. So if you look at it as a 25-year investment, he made on average about $17,000 per year after he recouped the cost and then actually sold the home and got his money back out of it. All the aggravation, all the time he put into that. And that's a rental home. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Believe me, it's a great thing. But it is not free. You earn that money. And let me just put it this way. $17,000, that is a pretty crappy part-time job if you're having to do what my dad had to make that. You could do something much easier a few days a week to actually get that money. So let's just say he earned that money, he deserved that money. At the same time, though, there was a tax bill at the end of it, and also it didn't all come easy. It was hard. So let's just put it that way. There's other ways to go about investing. Owning is not the only way to invest your money, and in fact, it's not even a good way to invest your money. You are lucky at the end of it to break even. Now, that does not mean that it's not a good thing. All it means is that you put money towards something and then you recoup it at the end. I look at it as a big piggy bank you're putting money into on a monthly basis. A piggy bank, you put your money in, later down the line, you get it out. So let's just put it that way, okay? Families need a home to live in. So this adds to the Brady Bunch white picket fence appeal. I do not believe that families need a home that they own to live in. There's a misconception that people need to own a home if they have a family. I do not believe that for one bit. Families need a place to live, a safe and secure place to live. It doesn't matter if it's a $500,000 home, or it doesn't matter if it's an apartment that you live in, or it doesn't matter if it's a townhome that you rent. It does not matter. Families need a safe and secure place to live. The concept of the family home, it's the concept of the family, not the home. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your family, and that means paying your bills on time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to own a home because you have kids. A lot of people get caught in that conception, and what that leads them to do is get married, have kids, buy a home, all in very short order in a 1, 2, even 3 year span, and then they have overwhelmed themselves with the cost of what they feel a family needs to have on a regular basis. This probably includes 2 car payments, credit cards maxed to the brim, and also lines of credit. So let's make sure that we are out of the misconception that families need a home to live in. They need a place to live in, and it needs to be safe and secure and well maintained and paid for on a regular basis. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to own a home. I think this actually, if you go back like 50 years, a lot of people actually, with their families, lived in apartments. You look at old movies of New York City and old Italian families and Greek and Jewish families living in apartments in New York City. They seem to get by quite fine. And I know people that rent and have families, and oftentimes they're doing quite well with themselves because their money's directed to other places. So let's get that myth out of the way. Let's look at some truths, though. Okay, so I've been bashing home ownership a little bit. I don't believe that's the case. I just want people to see both sides of the story. A home is a solid piece of financial plan, so let's take it back a notch. A home is a solid piece of any financial plan. Yes, that is true. In my 6-point focus on wealth, released March 6th in 2018, I mentioned home ownership as a solid foundation. If you look at my 7 steps to relevant retirement, number 3 is housing, and that could include home ownership, and more than likely it includes home ownership. But again, my focus is on paying off the home, not just owning a home, but really the bank owns the home for the sake of owning a home. The goal should be to pay off the home. So is the transition piece. Again, I want you to understand for the rest of housing for the rest of your life, making sure that you have a place to live, a place to stay for the rest of your life, and mitigating those costs as much as possible. One issue with renting, that cost never changes, and in fact, it goes up over time with inflation. The problem with that is that later in life, when you actually have to retire, you may or may not be able to afford that because you could be on a reduced income. So that's why home ownership is actually important. It's not about investment. It's about having some place to live with the cheapest cost possible. That is why home ownership is important, in my opinion. Home ownership can be a blessing. Imagine throwing mortgage-sized payments or mortgage-sized deposits into your investment accounts because you've paid off your home. That's an amazing, amazing thing. That's not possible with rent. If you own a home for 10, 15, 20 years and you pay it off, then you can use that money to actually put into your investments. So that's why, to me, home ownership is a very cool thing, because then you can transition that money elsewhere, but only if you're in the mentality to do it. So I give my post here, 10 benefits of home ownership. I want people to check that out as well. Land and property ownership does have value. If you're a landowner, you've created an interesting wealth dynamic in your life. Honestly, to me, owning land and owning property is huge, because in this part of the world, land and property go up in value, and they can go up in value over time because it's a very desirable place to live. Rental properties can provide monthly income for you for the rest of your life. If used correctly, you can add large amounts of wealth to your life later, like my father did when he unloaded his home. A mixed portfolio of investments, cash, and land is very diverse and almost never fails. You have things that may be going down in value, such as right now when the stock market went down, although it's climbing back up, but your land has not gone down. So we need to make sure that we are diversifying our portfolio, and that can include land and property. So that's a huge thing. The recent housing boom was prime season for property owners to unload units that they had for years and skate away with a hefty check. That's massive. So patience is key. You're patient with your asset, your home ownership, like you're patient with your investments. And that's what I want people to understand as well. Buying a home is the biggest purchase you'll ever make, so make sure you are being smart about it. Other than saving for retirement, which I hope you're doing, buying a home is the biggest purchase you will ever make in your lifetime. Home ownership requires careful planning, as there's a whole industry trying to separate you from owning your home. They're trying to separate you from your payments. They're trying to separate you from your home equity. So a good realtor and a good broker can help you navigate the tricky waters of the real estate market. Make sure you understand what's going on in terms of that. The banks will have you believe that you can afford a home that's out of your budget. Do not believe them. Make sure you're doing your own budget. And that's why I always provide the budget worksheet to help people understand what they need on a regular basis to get by. That's huge. Work within your comfort zone. If this means that you actually have to scale back a bit on your dream home and then upgrade later in life, make sure you do this. This is not a race to the finish. This is something you're doing that's comfortable within your own budget and your own timeline. Again, a truth, you don't have to own to be wealthy. Some of the richest people I know, some of the wealthiest people I know do not own a home. And the reason being is because they are not situated in one place at any given time. They do not want the responsibility of owning a home. They'd rather pay someone to handle that responsibility for them and then come home when they do. Oftentimes they travel a lot. Oftentimes they're not around much. So for them, not owning a home is not in their cards. Flexibility, convenience. One thing is that for sure, though, if you do not own your home or if you do not buy a home, you need on the back end as well. The problem is with it is if you're not buying a home and you're not saving for retirement, you are costing yourself in the end because you're going to have that cost of renting the rest of your life. The big thing with homeowners I want you to understand is that even though you're putting money into your home, you also need to save for retirement. Now, the person who actually rents may have to save more, and that's the big difference. Although you're renting, you need to put money into savings as well. Although you're owning, you need to put money into savings as well. The big difference is how much more. The housing person or the person who owns the home will have housing taken care of in retirement as long as they pay off their home. That's the huge one. So what did I accomplish with this post? Not much when you think about it. We didn't answer the question because the answer to the question is different for everyone. It's completely different for everyone. So we need to understand is that you need to understand yourself. And if you can understand yourself, you can answer that question for yourself. Do your research, and above all, if you go to own a home, pay off the home. That's the damn goal, okay? So let's understand that. Attached to this is a beautiful diagram of exactly what home ownership is all about versus renting. So the costs and the benefits between the two. This video is amazing. So I'm going to attach it. It's on YouTube. Drawing conclusions is renting really a waste of money. So let's make sure that we are actually taking the time to understand this. Again, the answer is different for everyone. I'm going to jump to this post right now, and this is from Lifehacker. This is why the rent versus buy debate is completely pointless. Interesting, right? So I'm going to magnify this a bit so we can see it a bit better. It's a pointless debate, and that's the one thing that people say. When they are hard fast about which is better and which is worse, they don't know what they're talking about. It's a completely pointless debate. That's why I stated both sides of it to give you the underlying theme of which one's which. Renting or buying aren't fundamentally good or bad. If you're renting, doesn't mean you're making a bad choice. If you're owning, it doesn't mean you're making a good choice. Neither one of them is fundamentally good or bad. How you handle your finances is actually what's good or bad. That's the key. When we actually go further down in the post, individual factors make it impossible to simplify. So everything that's good for you is not good for me. Big thing for me is I rent because I need the flexibility involved with renting. I need someone to take care of the things that I wouldn't take care of if I owned. I'm not home often, so I don't want to actually spend the time and spend the money to maintain my home. I want to keep my bills low. I want to put money into my business as opposed to owning a home right now. Later in life that will change, but for now, my individual factor is that renting is the best thing for me to do. Everyone's different, so actually thinking that you're making the best choice for yourself because you're owning a home is not necessarily the case. You need to take all the factors involved and understand yourself. That's a big one. Your home is a purchase, not an investment. I just said this. Owning a home is not an investment. You're making a purchase. It's just like buying a car. Difference between a car in value, your home generally will appreciate in value. That's a big difference. Real estate barely outpaces inflation. We're looking at a 2 to 3% increase over the life of your home if you're looking at a 25-year period, 30-year period. Historically, 2 to 3% appreciation in your home. There's very few investments that I know that appreciate that little. We're looking in GIC, guaranteed money range, when we're in that little. So don't look at your home as an investment. And again, we're pumping money into our home in terms of fees, in terms of the mortgage interest, in property tax, maintenance, all sorts of stuff. So buying a home is a bad investment. The problem is that many misinterpret this to mean that buying a home is a bad idea in general. It's not a good investment. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea. That's the thing that people need to understand. It's not as simple as people make it out to be. So this is my Life Hackers post basically outlining everything I say about this. And I'm going to also attach this post that they had. Owning a home costs way more than just the mortgage. That is a huge thing too. So there's other factors involved. I've been talking about them. I want people to know about all the other costs of owning a home. It's very, very substantial. It adds up over time. But if you're prepared for it, you can actually build an asset that you can use later in life. Also in this post, I'm going to include my 10 benefits to home ownership, just so I show you I'm not all about renting. There are benefits to home ownership, and in fact, there's more benefits to home ownership than renting. There are more benefits, but everyone is different, so we need to understand that what is right for you might not be right for me, and you need to go into any purchase or any transaction like this with making the right choices for yourself. Also, I'm going to include how to retire relevant step 3, my guide to retiring relevant, and how housing actually incorporates itself into retiring relevant. Again, the goal is to pay off the home. So for me, how to retire relevant step 3, it comes after budget and debt. It is right after that, and it's even before insurance and investments. So I want people to check that post out. Very, very dynamic post with lots of detailed inferences about how you need to have your housing locked down to get to retirement in a relevant situation, a relevant basis. So let's go back to our market update. Again, 2% gains across the board. Very, very impressive. Hopefully this continues throughout the day and throughout the week. And maybe we could look at a nice little mini rally to end the week and then start next week on a good foot. As restrictions get released around the world, we're seeing Europe, parts of Europe, France, Italy releasing the restrictions. Again, states in America, albeit maybe too early, are releasing restrictions as well. But here in Ontario, Canada, we are going to see a staggered approach to releasing restrictions on getting back to our normal life, and we will actually go about it that way. So we're seeing some positivity in markets. That's a good thing. Once again, apply for the CERB benefit. That's the Canadian Emergency Response Benefits, the $2,000 a month, $500 a week to get you through the coronavirus crisis if you have lost your job. If you have gotten your job back since then, make sure you do not apply, but also understand this is a taxable benefit, so it will come back at tax time next year. So understand that and make sure that you're reapplying every month as time goes on. Again, download the Combo Expenses Worksheet, and you can find me at @JoeBudgetBoss on Facebook. Over 12,700 followers on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well, @JoeBudgetBoss. Very good place to actually get up-to-the-minute information and updates. And I'm also on Instagram. IGTV has the catalog of videos for my COVID campaign. So that is @JoeBudgetBoss on Instagram. Also, LinkedIn, if you want to come see me in a suit. Joseph James Francis is my name, and my job title and where I work are there as well. And you can see the full catalog of videos on YouTube. The link is in my post here, and you can do that and check out every video from my COVID campaign for financial awareness. Also, you can go to budgetboss.ca/contact, book an appointment with me, or sign up for the email list. That is a really cool thing to do, and I'm more than happy to talk to you about your investments, your insurance, or your personal finance in general. And that's something that I'm doing right now with lots of people to make sure that they're ready to get through the coronavirus on top financially, and that's my goal. So I want people to have yourself a good day. Make sure we're continuing to isolate. Make sure we're continuing to follow the rules so we can get past this, reopen the economy, get back to doing the things we love. I saw a beautiful day yesterday, went out for a drive and saw way too many people congregating with each other. So that is not a good thing. Stay with the people in your household. Make sure you're going out for essential reasons only. And that, to me, is what we need to do to get through this. Ultimately, if you need to get out of the house, go for a run, go do whatever you got to do to actually burn off some steam or whatnot. But make sure that we're actually following the rules, breaking our way through this. And,